This is Gideon, and I'm reflecting on my fieldwork, my first fieldwork assignment. And this morning, I managed to go to the St. Anthony's, to visit St. Anthony's Greek Orthodox Church on Rosemead and California Boulevard. And at around 10:20, approximately 15 or 20 minutes after the service had started, my classmates and I managed to get into the sanctuary, and we were welcomed by some wonderful smell, some sweet-smelling aroma of the incense that was already burning, because the service was already underway, and the priest or the pantry or father was already conducting the service. And the sanctuary was half empty, but half full of people that were really intently focused on what was happening up front, near the altar where the man of God or the priest was kneeling and conducting the service from. And there was this back and forth response exchange between the choir, which was seated up somewhere on the extreme balcony and top, and the priest would say things to them, to the congregation really, but the exchange was between the priest and the choir. And the smell, as I said, is just sweet. It's great. And the sanctuary was brightly lit with all this wonderful, dazzling artwork of saints that I found out later were the names of saints. On the left were lady saints, women saints, and then on the right were men. I could read some names, at least, of Peter or Paul and Katrina. Most of the names everything was really in Greek. So I could all make out the articles like the ho or ha from my limited Greek that I've learned here at Fulham. And throughout, the congregation stood on their feet. People continued to stream. It's like they're not very strict when it comes to the time of service that when it begins. And so people are at liberty to come at whatever point. And so we continued. There was this back and forth, and people would respond, but mostly it was between the choir and the priest and the congregation. Mostly all they would do was draw some crosses like here, and like the way the Catholics do. And nothing much expected of them except some muttering, some response, which was kind of not very much expected. Some would read from the book, the liturgy, the liturgical books, but others just watched and stared. And what struck us, or me particularly, was the fact that everyone was really like smartly dressed, like they were really sharp in ties. The men and the women were in skirt suits, and I was thinking, oh, is it a business meeting or what? But someone explained later that they take the being in the Lord's presence very seriously. That's why they come that way. And so some of the practices that were engaged in the time, during the time whether there was a proclamation of the word at some point in the middle, toward the middle of the back and forth chanting of the liturgy, and the read from the gospel on the Canaanite woman that was seeking Jesus' intervention when he said that dogs should not be given the children's bread. And so we were encouraged by the priest to trust in God for other people, to intercede him for those people that we might consider to be unworthy. And then there was confession. We were led through a time of intercession and confessing our sins, and even some names of people came up, like John Chrysostom, some fathers. And I was there thinking, oh, do you worship a saint or what? But all this, and the most elaborate part was the moment when we were, the communion was served. And it was commenced there was a time when the priest and the altar boys went round holding this element, and we all followed closely, intently, and everyone was bowing and drawing all these crosses, and we all like really fixated our eyes on the elements, and they went down the inside of the sanctuary up to back the front, and then everyone was invited to come and partake of the communion, which was only the members, only the true Orthodox were welcome to partake. Although later, towards the end of the service, the worship service, the liturgy, we were all invited to go back there to get for a blessing, and each of us got some bread, which is communal, and you're supposed to get quite several pieces. Like I got like 4 of them to share with others. So as for the practice, those are the practices that I saw there, and there was no singing except for the choir. The members just were passive, a lot of passivity or passiveness on the part of the members. They were just like there listening and seeing what's happening and responding, and mostly it was all standing. And then towards the end, we were invited to go for some coffee time where everyone fellowshipped, and I would say that was kind of being sent out or being dismissed after the proclamation of the brief proclamation of the one that was read from the Gospels. Going forward, I would think that they are doing a really good job of expressing what it means to have reverence for God's presence, because they all smartly dressed, and then there's no looking around, there's not even not talking there. But I just thought that they could do a better job